Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Beauty Tips Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything from hair to fashion to skincare products. We'll talk about the latest trends in makeup, hairstyles, and anti-aging remedies. And we'll cover all of the newest fashion trends. If you have an interest in or questions about the beauty and fashion trends that might work best for you, the Golden State Media Concepts Beauty Tips Podcast has got you covered.
Thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Beauty Tips Podcast. I am your host, Jaden, J-Smack, J-Money, Shear Stud. I go by many different names. However, Jaden will do. In today's episode, we are going to be talking a little bit again about how my week was. I think it's really important that you guys get to know me and just kind of talk about my life a little bit. Next, I am going to go through some of the looks from the Golden Globes that happened recently. I have a bunch of outfits, some good, some bad, but we'll talk about it. We'll get into it. Then I'm going to be talking to you guys about self-love and how to love yourself and what self-love means to me, how I practice self-love, and anything self-love related. And then stay tuned till the end of the show, where I will be kind of talking to you guys about something skincare related. I'm going to be talking to you guys about sunspots, also known as sun damage, sun kisses, whatever you want to call them, little dark spots that can occur really anywhere on your body. I'll be talking about what causes them, prevention to prevent them from happening, and even as far as treatment. Now, I would like to preface this in the beginning. I am by no means a dermatologist. I am not an expert in any of the things that I'm talking about. However, I do feel like I have enough background knowledge to be able to talk about these things, and I want you guys to use me as a filter for information. I receive the information, dig through it, see what the good stuff is, see what's true, see what might be some BS, sort through that, and then deliver what I think is the most beneficial to you guys. So stay tuned, and we will go through all of those things. So starting with how my week was. Now listen, this week has been kind of a rough one. As I mentioned previously, I've been going through not the easiest time when it comes to my mental health and staying positive and having a positive outlook. But I'll get into that a little bit later. First, let's talk about what my main stressor is. Not necessarily for the week, but for like today specifically. My laptop, my personal laptop, is garbage. Now, I am very fortunate to say that my work provides me with a laptop. However, I like to use that one just for work, and I use my personal iPad for school. However, there are some situations where you just need a computer. And this computer, when I got it, it was fast. It had reliable battery. Like, it was 10 out of 10, no complaints. I want to say maybe like 6 months into having it, it just got really slow. I want to say it probably takes me around like 15 minutes from the time I turn it on to the time where I'm like doing the actual assignment. It takes about 15 minutes to even get there. And it's just really annoying. And I feel like it's one of those things that, like, it's not a necessity to have a fast computer, and I understand that. However, it does make things a whole lot easier to have a computer that goes by fast. Like today, the whole reason why I even needed my computer is because I was taking an exam. It's a proctored exam with a lockdown browser. And to do that, you can't just do it on an iPad. You have to do it on a computer. So I pull out Old Faithful, my personal laptop, and I turn it on, and it takes forever to boot up. was like, all right, fine. I have plenty of time before the exam. Like, I knew that this was probably going to happen, so I planned accordingly. Oh, those little taps, that was me talking with my hands, just clapping a little bit. So I turn on my computer, and it's booting up, and finally I get to the screen that I need to be on, and it's a minute before the exam. I said, perfect. Timing could not be better. I start the exam, 100 questions, have an hour to do it. I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm going through the exam, and there's a lot of questions, right? I think I told you guys there was 100. And for each question, it's multiple choice. So you select the answer, and you can either save that question, or at the very end, you can save all. Like, just save all the questions. Well, my professor, obsessed with her, love her. If you're listening, 10 out of 10. The music that you play at the beginning of the class is everything. The professor said in the beginning with the instructions to save as you go and not at the end, because that tends to freeze your computer. Now, I read those instructions and I think, okay, my computer is like kind of trash. So if I do try to save all, my computer is probably going to explode. I understood that. However, every time that I went to save a question, I want to say it took maybe 15 seconds to save. Now listen, that normally would be fine. I only had an hour to do this exam, and it would not let me move on to the next question until it was finished saving. Now, 15 seconds probably does not seem like a lot of time, but when you are taking a timed exam with 100 questions, 15 seconds for 100 questions, plus I have to answer all the questions, plus I have to read the questions, like that is just not enough time. And I am saving my answers as I go, and I want to say I get to about 40 or 50. So I'm at the halfway point when it comes to questions, and I'm also about halfway when it came to the time that I had. At this point, it had been about 30 minutes. And then I realized that the questions are getting harder. So it takes me maybe a minute to answer each question as opposed to 30 seconds. So then I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, I'm running out of time, and this computer is just not working with me. So I said, you know what we're going to do? So we're going to go through, just going to answer the questions, and then at the very end, we're going to save what I can. Because, little piece of information that I forgot to include earlier. You get 3 tries to take this exam. So this is my 3rd time taking it. For the 2nd time, I kind of had a similar problem, but it was not this bad. I texted my professor because we're cool, we're homies like that. And I was like, hey, girl, what if I don't save my answers and I just submit them? What's going to happen? Like, would it just submit the questions and just pretend like I never even answered it? She was like, I'm not sure. You should just save it anyways. I said, okay. So the 3rd time I get around to it, and I was like, you know what? We're just going to save, I guess, what we can. So at the very end, I answer all the questions, and I have about 10 minutes left. I was like, okay, I have 10 minutes to go through like 50-something questions and save them all. So I start saving them, and I realize there's not enough time to be able to save all of these. So I was like, okay, maybe if I just click submit, it'll literally do anything. Well, I did that, and the exam timed out. So I'm not entirely sure what was submitted for this exam. But I don't know if it was all the questions, if it was the first 50, but we'll find out. So as of today, that has been my biggest cause of stress. On a lighter note, I recently got a deck of tarot cards. Listen, I am all about it. Tarot cards, crystals, astrology, you name it, I'm about it. My knowledge is somewhat limited, as it is with many things. However, I made sure to get a guidebook. I watched a bunch of tutorials on how to make sure that I'm using these tarot cards the right way. Because the last thing I want to do is piss off one of my ancestors or anybody who might be listening. Like, that's the last thing I want to do, because that is not the kind of drama that I need to deal with right now, because it's 2021. I'm all about me. I don't have time to worry about a demon or like an ancestor unless I'm specifically trying to call to them, right? Anyways, I get the deck of tarot cards and I'm going through the cards, the artwork on the cards, gorgeous, stunning, 10 out of 10, would recommend. So I'm going through them and I'm like, okay, these are kind of everything. So then I was like, okay, let's do a reading about myself. And so I'm going through, shuffling the deck, doing tarot card things. And I start pulling cards and I realize that it seems a little like targeted. Like everything that I was reading, it just seemed like it was very specific about me. Like when I was reading the little description of each card, there were key words in there that like specifically, the words were really specific and they had like a direct application to something in my life. An example, one of the things was like, you're going to, like something new is going to happen when it comes to like your education, right? Or, okay, that was kind of like a bad example. A different example, like a career change is coming. And I don't know if you guys know this. I'm sure I've mentioned it before. So I work in construction. However, my major is no longer construction. You see what I'm saying? So the tarot card said that there's going to be a change in my career. And I said, well, what is it going to be? What does the universe have in stock for me? I didn't really know what it meant, and I didn't want to look too far into it because then I would start getting paranoid and I would start getting anxious, and I just like did not have time for that. But if you are interested in getting tarot cards, or if that is something that you guys are interested in me talking about, feel free to let me know because I would love to talk about them. I think they're so much fun, and they can offer a lot of insight. Like, regardless if you're looking for really clear answers or even some guidance, it really does help to organize kind of the thoughts that you're having, the feelings that you're having, just anything that you may be going through. I feel like tarot cards really do help make that stuff clear. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about for this week is my love life. Now, listen, this is going to be a very short subject. My love life is virtually non-existent. Dating during a pandemic is hard. Being gay and dating during a pandemic is also hard. I was going to say it's harder, but I don't know what it's like to date from a straight perspective. Anyways, so my love life, not much going on, right? So before COVID and all this madness, I don't want to say I was like constantly going on dates. Like I've only been on like maybe one date, and it was just like never anything exciting. Well, I have been relatively lonely during quarantine, as most people probably are. And what's a homosexual to do when they're feeling lonely and looking for answers? You turn to the tarot cards. I'm just kidding. That's probably not what everybody does, but that's what I did. I turned to the tarot cards and I was like, listen, universe, listen, girl, I need you to give me some guidance for my love life. You gave me advice about my career and about school. Let's get a little bit more personal, right? Let's talk about love. So I did a tarot card reading for a potential relationship because there's this new guy that I'm talking to. We've only been talking for like maybe 1 or 2 days, so it's like literally nothing serious. And the tarot cards were like, somebody new has just entered your life and it's going to be good. It's going to be good for you. You're going to fall in love. It's going to be like this. It's going to be like this. And I started getting excited and I said, well, there's only one person who I'm talking to. So it's got to be him. Is he the one? Am I going to marry this man? But then I started thinking about it and I was like, you know what? Probably not. Like the odds of me marrying this guy, very low, very low. But I'm also not dating at this current point in my life. I'm not dating to get married. I'm just dating to like have fun. You know, I'm not really here for anything serious. Like maybe a 1 or 2 year relationship would be nice, but like I'm not looking for anything like super duper like crazy long term. But I think going back to the whole tarot card thing, like it gave me good guidance, but it also was kind of telling me what I wanted to hear. So then I was like, well, at what point are these tarot cards actually telling me something versus me interpreting them in a way that I want to, right? Who knows? Maybe I'll have somebody else give me a tarot card reading about it specifically, but we'll see. Stay tuned for after the break, where I will be going through some of the outfits from the most recent Golden Globe Awards. We got some good, some bad. Actually, looking at this list, a majority of them are kind of bad. There's only one that I'm like really obsessed with, but we'll get into it. Stay tuned.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back, everybody, to the GSMC Beauty Tips podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Shear Stud. So prior to this, we talked a little bit about how my week was and just some of the stuff that I've been dealing with this week. So if you're interested about me as a person, go back and listen. Maybe listen for a second time, maybe even a third time. If there's anything that I said that you resonate with, DM us on Instagram. Let us know. So now, for what I would say is the meat and potatoes of this podcast, we're going to be going through the looks from the Golden Globe Awards that just happened. I have a bunch of different outfits in front of me with a bunch of different celebrities and their outfits. So we're just going to go through those. I'll give you guys my opinion on them. These are in really no specific order, kind of just how I put them in here. Well, I guess the way that I put them in here, like, my favorite one is the last one. So stay tuned for the last one. So the first outfit that I kind of want to start with is Miss Sarah Paulson in her little Prada dress. It is an all-black dress. Looks like there's a belt in the middle. It gives me very much seatbelt vibes. Her hair is kind of slicked down and kind of has the ends kind of going out a little bit. So it's like sleek flat and then perked up towards the ends. At first, when I saw this photo, so all of the photos that I found were provided by British Vogue, preferably their Twitter account. When I first saw this photo, she has a cast on her arm, and for some reason, it just didn't register with me that, like, it was an injury. I just thought it was an accessory. So when I first saw it, I was like, okay, interesting choice. Personally, not one that I would have made, but still a choice nonetheless. But then the caption says, at Miss Sarah Paulson has the perfect at Prada arm candy, which makes me think, all right, she just has a cast. Homegirl got hurt doing something. The story behind that, I have no idea. I don't really care. However, Sarah Paulson, if you're listening, I love you, and I hope you get better. This dress, I love. It looks like a matte black dress with very simple designs. Based on the photo, I can't really tell what these tiny little designs are, but they're scattered throughout the outfit, and I think this outfit is pretty good for the Golden Globes. I feel like it's very simple, but it's still really classy. It's an off-the-shoulder moment. The only thing that I'm not a fan of is her little seatbelt belt. Only because it is really long, too. Like, the strand that is sticking out is kind of long. And the clasp for the belt, again, is really big. And I just don't think it was necessary. I think the illusion that she might be trying to go for is kind of like that over-exaggerated hourglass type shape. But instead of having an ugly belt, what she could have done, and what I would recommend to you, is even taking, like, if you have a little bit more money, invest in a corset or even a waist cincher, the teeny tiny ones. You can get them from, like, Spirit Halloween. They're super cheap, and I think they're really effective in giving you a slight cinched waist. However, if you want that really dramatic type look, then I would recommend a corset. I got my corset from Amazon. It's a steel corset. I personally would recommend that one only because it's like a typical corset the way you put it on. However, it is incredibly uncomfortable, and more times than not, I find myself that I am in pain when I'm wearing the corset. And I know that it's not sustainable, and I'm probably doing my body more harm than good. But listen, this body is temporary. Beauty is forever. And that's what matters. Because at the end of the day, when my time on this earth is up, what are people going to remember me by? My Instagram photos, where I have a snatched waist, my makeup is perfect. That's what they're going to remember me by. And so that's how I want to look. Alternatively, if you don't feel like getting a corset or a waist cincher, which you could do. Now, I'm going to be honest, I have done this maybe once or twice in my life, and I would not recommend it because it's just not sustainable. However, if you're in need of something quick, then probably do this. Is packing tape. You can get some packing tape and literally just tape your waist and really give yourself that definition that you're looking for. If you're going to do this, kind of follow the same procedure that you would do if you're waxing your legs or your face or your arm or something. Use some type of powder, whether it's baby powder, like setting powder, translucent setting powder, anything, I don't really care, to really absorb all of the oils that are on your skin, because that'll make the tape stick better. I would also recommend that wherever you tape it, try to have minimal hair in that area. For obvious reasons, when you take it off, it's just going to hurt, and nobody wants to do that. So baby powder, hairless, packing tape. It works. If you notice that you get sweaty throughout the night while you have this packing tape on, it's probably going to start to unravel. And in that case, I would just, if you're at a restaurant, just be like, hey, like, I need to use the bathroom, and then go to the bathroom and take the tape off, throw it in the trash can. Because what'll happen is the tape, it will unstick from your skin, and once it dries, it'll start sticking to itself. And so then that's when you'll see underneath your shirt, you'll see the little outline of the creased tape because you got tape underneath your shirt. Anyways, going back to Miss Sarah Paulson, this outfit, great. I love it. The next outfit is Miss Nicole Kidman in her little Louis Vuitton. Now, here's the thing with this outfit. I think the idea behind it is good. She's laying down, so I can't really see the shape of it, but it does look very stiff, and it looks like when she's wearing it, like it doesn't accentuate any of like her curves or anything. It just gives me very like tunic vibes. It's a black dress with gold chain that goes vertically along the sides of it. You know, the more that I look at this, the more I realize that I really do not like it. At first I thought I was just confused about it, but I'm realizing that I just don't like it. I think for the Golden Globes, especially being Nicole Kidman, I feel like she can do better. I feel like we've seen her do better. I can't imagine, and this goes for all of the celebrities that I'm talking about, I cannot imagine how hard it is to find an outfit that you like enough to wear to an award show during a pandemic. I imagine that it's not easy. And especially if any of these are custom, like that sounds even more challenging. Yeah, Nicole Kidman, fan of the celebrity, not a fan of the outfit. The next outfit is going to be from Miss Elle Fanning in her Gucci dress. Listen, I have mixed opinions when it comes to Gucci. I feel like I've only been to a Gucci store like maybe once or twice in my life. And just every time that I go, I'm just never impressed. I just think that they're kind of overhyped and overpriced. And I might just be saying that because I'm broke. However, regardless, I think even if I did have the money to be able to afford Gucci, I can't really see myself purchasing anything from there. However, this dress from Gucci is marvelous. It is a light blue, closer to white, I would say, than to blue, really flowy dress. And the bottom of it pulls down at the bottom. There's just an excess amount of fabric, which I love. I love a good train moment, just walking down a big staircase and your dress is just, oh my God, I love it. I really do like the color. I feel like it fits her very well. Because Elle Fanning is a little bit more on the pale side, I think that by picking a color that was just as light, I think really did it worked well with her skin tone. The makeup that she has really does complement her. She in the photo it looks like she has heavy blush, which I'm not against, especially if you have more pale skin. Using blush as a way to warm up your skin can really help do just that, warm up your skin. Another thing that she could have done that I can't really see in this photo is maybe some forehead bronzing or contouring or something, just to reduce the size of her forehead. And again, bronzing your face will add some warmth to it. The next outfit I want to talk about is from Miss Lily Collins. Now, she looks incredible. At a first glance, there is not a single thing wrong with it. However, I like to really invest in these photos and I really like to zoom in on them. Makeup, stunning. It's a dark eye look with a pretty light lip. Very bold, very dramatic. She has her hair swooped over to one side. Bold is a good word to use for this entire outfit. Her hair, perfect. Makeup, perfect. Her accessories, this is where it gets interesting because she's wearing a ring. It's kind of a big ring, and an even bigger bracelet. Actually, I don't even know if you could call it a bracelet. It's more of like the clamp ones that go over your wrist. They're very big, and they do match her outfit, and they do match each other. So I think those are good. I can't tell if she has... Okay, she does. Perfect. That's good. She does have rings on her other hand. And I think by having ring and bracelet on one hand and then just ring on the other, I think it creates a good balance because the last thing that you want is for it to look like you over-accessorized. This outfit, however, on the other hand, it's gold, blue, brown, tan, green. And it gives me very much, there's this restaurant here in Sacramento where I live. It's like Taste of Jerusalem, I think. I think that's what it's called. And it gives me very much the vibes of something like a curtain that you would see in there or just something like very much that vibe. And I love the pattern. I just don't think it's right for the Golden Globes. In the original tweet, British Vogue tagged Cartier, as well as YSL. I'm not sure if the two companies collaborated on this or if YSL did the dress or however that dynamic worked, but I think the dress could use a little bit of work. Moving on to the final outfit. Listen, I was gagged. I was fully gagged when I saw this because I wasn't really expecting this from this celebrity. I think what I'll do is I'll explain the outfit and then I'll tell you who it is. This dress is gorgeous. there's not a single thing that I would change to it. The cut is perfect. The length, perfect. The color, perfect. It's just every single thing about this look is perfect. The way that it like hangs off of this girl's shoulders, the way it's hanging off of her arms, like her shoes match, it's incredible. It's a dark, I want to say it's almost like a forest green, looks a little shimmery gown that has what looks to be a train attached to it, but it's just connected to the sleeves. So my guess is that if she were to take off the sleeves, that the entire train would come off as well. And then she would just have this like really slim fitting, gorgeous dress. I'm just obsessed with this. The dress is from Queen, icon, overall incredible actress, Miss Anya Taylor-Joy, in her dark forest green Dior dress. I am obsessed with this look. If you want to see the look that I'm talking about, if I just did not do it justice by explaining it verbally, which I don't think I did, it'll be on our Instagram. Go check it out. Leave us a like. Let us know if it's as stunning as I think it is. Stay tuned for after the break, where I will be talking about self-love, because self-love is so important. Because if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else? That is not an original quote. I did, in fact, steal that from RuPaul's Drag Race. Regardless, stay tuned.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Hello and welcome back to the GSMC Beauty Tips Podcast. I am your host, Shear Stud, also known as Jaden. Like I said before, you can call me whatever you want as long as it's not derogatory. So, before this, we went through the looks from the Golden Globes, and we talked about those, and we talked about my favorites, and we talked about some that I just didn't really like. And then I talked about how my week was, and now I'm going to be talking to you guys about self-love and what it means to really love yourself, and how to love yourself, how to take those necessary steps, what I do to show myself that I love myself. Because I've said this once and I will say it again. Once you love yourself, then you can begin to love somebody else. And I think it's important that you're able to do that, and to really be able to take the time to kind of self-reflect on your life and how you love somebody else and what you need to feel loved from somebody else. So the first thing that I want to talk about is trauma. Now listen, relax. You don't have to unclench your jaw, relax your shoulders. It's okay. I don't want to talk about any specific type of trauma. Rather, I kind of want to talk to you guys about how trauma can kind of shape how you see yourself, depending on what that situation was. I find that if you're in a traumatic, if you go through something traumatic, it's going to change you. And that's okay. It's okay to let the situation around you affect you. And it's okay for yourself to kind of acknowledge the changes that are happening. One of the things that can be affected because of trauma is how you view yourself, and whether you see yourself as a confident person or as somebody who's maybe not so confident, soft-spoken, or whatever it may be. Trauma just has a way of just messing with it. So myself, and I'm sure many of you out there, have experienced some sort of trauma. And for me personally, I'm not going to get into what that trauma was because that is not what this podcast is. That trauma really did affect how I view myself, whether it's how I view myself physically, emotionally, academically, literally anything. And being an adult, I am slowly having to realize those things and figuring out how I can change them or kind of adapt to them and kind of make them work for me. Because for a long time, the way that I viewed myself was in a negative fashion, and it just wasn't healthy. And it's, again, not sustainable. The journey to loving yourself. Oh, it sounds kind of like a book. I should do audiobooks next. That would be fun. Anyways, the journey to loving yourself, it's not an easy one. It's not a straight road. There's lots of turns. You have no directions. It's dark outside and it's raining. And you left your glasses at home. Like, it's not easy. And I don't think it's easy for anybody. I think because in order to heal from your trauma, you have to relive that. And some people, just the trauma that they go through, it's not worth it. It's not worth reliving that trauma to try and fix themselves. They would rather sit there and deal with the consequences from that trauma rather than reliving the trauma, figuring out how it affected them, how they can learn from it, and then applying it. I think in order to heal from your trauma, to begin to start to love yourself, you have to relive your trauma. And when I say relive, I just mean reflect. You just really have to reflect on the trauma that has happened, how it affected you. And you cannot get caught up on why the trauma happened, because it was probably out of your control. There was nothing you could have done to have that not happen to you. And it's already happened. So who cares why it happened? Instead, just assessing the situation and how it's affected you growing up or in your adult life, and how some of that trauma is peeking through into your adult life, and how you can kind of resist that a little bit. And the easiest way that I have found to do this is just by reflecting. You can ask any of my roommates. 90% of the time that I am home, I am in my room. I'm probably just on my phone or literally just laying there staring up at the ceiling, just like not doing a single thing. And I think alone time for somebody is what's needed in order to heal from any trauma that you've experienced. Because when you're alone, it really gives you the time and the space to go through and reflect on that trauma in a space that you feel the most safe. And so for me, that's my bedroom. So if you feel safe in your car, then I would recommend doing a majority of your reflecting in the car. Maybe not necessarily like while you're driving, but like go to a park or something, preferably one that like doesn't have that many people, because if you're just chilling at a park in your car where there's children, that might be a little sus. But I think just finding the time and the space to reflect on something traumatic that has happened in a place where you feel as safe as possible. And even if that's with a group of people, if you feel the most safe when you're in a group, then by all means, take that opportunity to reflect and to try and heal from any of the damage that has been done in the past. Now, say you don't have any trauma and that you've never experienced trauma before, and for some reason you still don't feel like you love yourself. That's totally valid. However you're feeling, regardless of why you're feeling like that, it is 100% valid. Nobody can tell you that you can't feel like that. Nobody can tell you that, oh, you feel like this? Well, you should feel like this. Because that's just not how emotions work. And so say you've experienced what am I trying to say? So say you experience lack of self-love, but you aren't too sure if you've experienced trauma or you know that you haven't, then that's still where you can reflect, because you can really sit down and really start digging in that brain of yours and really understand, what is it about myself that I don't love or that I'm unhappy with? Say it's your weight, for example. Weight is a very talked about topic because so many people struggle with their weight, whether they're overweight, underweight, they don't look like how they want to look, or God forbid their significant other is pushing them to look a certain way. I think reflecting on, one, the weight that you want to be. Why is that something why is that a goal for you? Is it a goal because you want to look like everybody else? You're tired of being looked at, so you just want to blend in, or you want to be more healthy. Say you're overweight and you want to lose weight because you want to be more healthy. I feel like understanding the reason behind the goal is the first step to making the conscious decision to be able to love yourself. Because everybody has said this, and I'm not going to be the exception, change starts from within. You have to mentally be in a place where you are ready to, again, accept that trauma, accept the reason behind why you have certain goals, and apply them. It is not easy. I think anybody who has been through this process, is going through this process, is about to go through this process. It is not an easy one. And this is where I would recommend having somebody to talk to, whether it's a friend or a therapist, a roommate, or like a podcast even. Like, it can literally be anything where it gives you a space to reflect and have somebody listen. Because it's one thing to sit there and reflect, but what I find that happens to myself is that if I'm reflecting too much for too long, I kind of get stuck in this cycle where I'm not really doing anything productive anymore. Where I'm like, okay, well, I want to lose weight. Why do I want to lose weight? Because I want to be skinny, which is not the mindset somebody should have, because both of those terms are subjective, sorry, mixed up my words, are subjective. So those have different meanings to everybody. And so I'm like, okay, well, I want to lose weight because I want to be skinny. Well, then it's like, okay, well, why else? Like that can't be the only reason, right? Because I have the goal to be skinny. However, what is the reasoning behind that? Do I want to be skinny because I just want to be skinny, or is it because I see a photo on Instagram of somebody who's skinny and I'm like, I want to look like that? Do I feel pressured to be skinny? But then it kind of just starts spiraling into, well, I want to be skinny because it's what I want. It's what I want. I want to be skinny. But then I also feel like that's not, I feel like part of being human isn't to make choices just because. Does that make any sense? I feel like in order to make a choice, you need to understand why you're making that choice. I would say that that's pretty fair. And I got stuck in the cycle of not really having a reason to why I wanted to do this. So then what I needed in that moment was somebody to kind of snap me out of it almost and just be like, okay, we know that you want to be skinny, but why? Is it because you feel like you have to? Is it because of you want to fit into an outfit that you couldn't fit into before? Like, what is the reason behind this? Right? So then once you understand the reason behind why you're doing something, or why something's affecting you or whatever it may be, that's when you can start to understand the steps that you need to take to fix whatever, or to change whatever you're trying to change. A good example of this is, we'll just keep going with weight loss, because I feel like, for one, it's personal, because I, in fact, would like to be skinny. Why? I don't know. If you understand the goal and you understand the reason behind the goal, and in this situation, like I said, the goal is wanting to lose weight, then you kind of know the necessary steps that you need to take to lose weight, right? And there's obviously like the textbook, like eat healthy, diet, exercise, whatever. And that's a good place to start, because it kind of gives you a good foundation for where you need to go next. So, okay, so say you want to lose weight and you just got a gym membership and you got a personal trainer, and your personal trainer is kind of the one who's giving you kind of what to do, right? And say like that stuff isn't working. That's when, again, you would go back and refine and reflect really about that workout and why it's not working and what you need to do better. So essentially, life is literally just reflecting. It's reflecting and how you can better yourself. Because at the end of the day, if at 20 years old, I am the person who I'm going to be by the time that I am 60, I'm the same person. I'm dealing with the same things, the same trauma, the same wanting to lose weight, whatever it may be. If I am dealing with those same things, personally, I would not consider that a successful life. I think that part of having a successful life means to constantly grow yourself and to make yourself better. And I think self-love is probably the most important thing to consider. Coming up after the break, I will be talking to you guys about sunspots, something a lot of us have. Where do they come from? How do I get rid of them? Stay tuned, because I will talk about it.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast, dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Welcome back, everybody, to the GSMC Beauty Tips Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jaden, Shear Stud. You know, we go through this every time, so I think for the next podcast, I think I'm just going to pick a name, and we'll just stick with it. Anyways, so at the beginning of the podcast, talked about how my week was, and I talked a little bit about myself, and I really hope you guys enjoy it, because there's nothing more that I love than talking about myself. I'm just kidding. After that, I went through some of the outfits from the Golden Globe Awards and ranked I didn't really rank them, but I kind of talked about what I thought about them and one of my favorites. Again, because it is worth repeating. Anya Taylor-Joy in her Dior green dress. Immaculate. Anyways, then I talked to you guys, we got really heartfelt and really emotional and really vulnerable together. I talked to you guys about self-love and what self-love means to me and how I think it's so important to love yourself. Well, now I am going to be talking to you guys about skincare. I haven't touched much on skincare, only because it's just so different for each person that I figured, why even talk about it? But then I remembered everything is different for each person. Makeup, hair, skincare, outfits, literally everything. So I figured I'll just bite the bullet and we'll talk about it anyways. But I did end up finding something that I did really want to talk to you guys about. And that is sunspots. Sunspots, they can really occur anywhere on the body. They are most common on your face. Again, I said this at the beginning of the podcast and I will say it again. I am not a dermatologist. I have no credentials. The only thing that I am speaking on is my experience and some of the research that I've done. By all means, if you do see anything concerning on your skin, please do seek medical attention. I am a 20-year-old drag queen. I am probably the least qualified to be giving you any sort of medical advice. However, I do have experience in some of these things, and I am going to talk about it. So sunspots, they can be anywhere on the body, but they're the most common on the face. And this is because more times than not, this face is going to be the part of the body that has skin that is going to be exposed to the sunlight, obviously. That was a weird way to say it. And because of this, the skin on your face needs so much TLC, so much tender love and care that it warrants an entire segment on this podcast. And skincare just in general, there's just so much to cover that like that easily could be like 2 or 3 different podcasts. Anyways, back to sunspots. Sunspots, they are not dangerous. However, if you do notice any bleeding, any liquid coming out or any pus or anything like that coming out of what seems to be a sunspot, please immediately seek medical attention because that is not what this is. That is not what, because if it's bleeding or doing anything like that, it's not a sunspot. It's probably something else. If you see that the same sunspot is growing, again, please seek medical attention. So the way that sunspots are primarily caused are by certain skin cells producing too much melanin in a certain area of the face. And there are some ways that you can prevent this initially from happening. I would recommend sunscreen. Sunscreen, if there is any skincare step that you need to pay attention to, it is sunscreen because it'll help with sunspots, wrinkles, sun damage, skin cancer. Like you name it, sunscreen will probably help it. The method for application for sunscreen that I prefer is the 3-finger method. And what that means is you just put a line of sunscreen on all 3 fingers from the knuckle, I guess. Yeah, from the knuckle all the way up to the fingertip. You just do the entire finger. And that should be enough to cover your entire face. Now, I would normally do the 3-finger method in the morning, like before I go to work. However, if I'm going to sleep, I do still like to put sunscreen on just a little bit. I maybe do 1 finger, maybe 1.5, just in case in the morning when I wake up, I don't put sunscreen on. And it does happen. I do forget. SPF 30 or higher, I would recommend. Anything lower than that, at that point, like, it's just lotion. Feel free, like, oh my gosh, do not forget to put sunscreen on your ears and on your neck. Hello, are you kidding? There have been too many times where I will be at the beach and I'll just be people watching, doing my thing, chilling on the beach, and I'll just notice somebody will put sunscreen like in the movies, well, they'll do a tiny bit on their forehead, a little dot on their nose, and like that's it. Like, I'm fully gonna need like pumps. I put so much sunscreen on sometimes. Like, there are times where if my skin is dry and it's really sunny outside, I'm gonna be outside for a really long time, I will do the 3-finger method pretty frequently. I want to say like maybe every 2.5 hours I'll be reapplying it, only because I find that the sunscreen that I use specifically helps hide any oil, it absorbs any oil, really helps block the nasty pollution that's in the air, and I just find that it's just great. And the one that I use, it does not leave a white cast over your face. Like some sunscreens, when you put them on, it leaves kind of this like white film. And as a darker person with brown skin, that is no secret. I have brown skin, everybody. A white cast over my face literally just makes me look ashy, and it's not cute. So I really do try and test a sunscreen kind of on the back of my hand when I first get it or when I'm at the store or something. Put a little bit on the back of my hand, rub it in. Try to look at it in as natural light as you can. And that's when you'll really be able to see if there's any type of white cast or any discoloration or anything like that. Now, since sunspots can occur anywhere on the body, not just on the face, you do also need to wear UV protect, like, I don't even think that's the right way to use that word. Clothing that also offers UV protection. Because say you're walking around outside and you're just wearing like sweatpants and a t-shirt or something, and say you have sunscreen on your arms, neck, ears, face, hands, anything that's like exposed, right? You still have sunscreen on those. Well, say you don't have sunscreen on your legs and you're walking on like, I don't know, concrete or something. Concrete has the tendency to reflect the sunlight, and your skin will still absorb the sun rays even if it's not in direct contact with it. Does that make sense? So by wearing clothes that also protect against UV rays, it helps to just keep your skin just soft and supple and just as in perfect condition as you can keep it. So there are some clothing brands that are better than others when it comes to UV protection. I'm just going to list some of my favorites. We have Columbia, Patagonia, North Face, I believe, also has some. If you're looking for like swimsuits that are good for like UV protection, there's this company called Lands' End, Lands, Lands apostrophe, End, END. They offer, I would say, a pretty good range of swimwear for UV protection. Columbia Sportswear, like I said earlier, they do have a really good plus size section. Okay, well, I wouldn't say really good, but they do have a plus size section, which is a benefit. I would say those brands are pretty good when it comes to UV protection because those brands are mainly for like athletic, like hikers, runners, like people like that. Now, there are certain ingredients to keep an eye out when it comes to treating sunspots. When I say ingredients to keep an eye out for, it's because they're beneficial. The first one, and I'm probably going to mess up this name, hydroquinone. I don't remember how to say it, but I will post it on my Instagram story, and I will have somebody like do the correct pronunciation for it. It is essentially an ingredient. You can either get it over the counter or as a prescription, but as we all know, the prescription stuff just tends to be just a little bit better. But there's nothing wrong with getting something that's over the counter. In terms of application for a product that has this chemical, do not put it over your entire face. That is not what it's supposed to be used for. Chemicals like this are mainly for target control. So putting on the tiny, thinnest little dot of the product onto your specific sunspot and just leaving it on there, letting your skin really absorb all the nutrients, and then slap on a sunscreen, your favorite sunscreen. And with a product like this, you do have to be really careful with how much you use because it is kind of a potent product when it comes to how strong it is. So I would recommend that if you start using this unknown chemical that you put a tiny little dot on wherever your sunspots are. I would say maybe do that no more than once a week. And you can leave it on overnight. That's totally fine. No more than once a week. And then I would slowly start to introduce that to your sunspots more frequently. Start with once a week, then twice a week, and 3 times a week, then 4, then 5, 6, 7, and then however else you want to do it. And if you notice that after maybe like a month or two, you haven't really noticed much of a difference with your sunspots, you can either keep increasing how frequently you're applying the product. I know that there are some products that I use that in theory, if I wanted to, I could use them multiple times a day, but I just don't. The only thing that I do is like sunscreen. You could even be using a product as much as twice a day, but I really wouldn't go any more than that because I feel like at that point you're just going to overload your skin and probably end up doing more harm than good. Now, this mysterious unknown chemical is not the only thing that you could use. There is a topical vitamin A type of supplement, I guess, that you could use. And it's going to be more of like a retinoid. And so it essentially is just going to help collagen production in your skin. And then it'll, like, if you have any fine lines and wrinkles, it'll minimize the appearance of those. It helps even out skin tone. And so that's why it's good for sunspots because, again, if you don't really have that much discoloration in your skin on your face, but you just have sunspots, just use a topical vitamin A retinoid just on those specific areas. Because the last thing you want to do is help skin that doesn't need to be helped. Because at that point, you're probably just going to mess it up. Like, just leave it alone. She's good. She's fine. She's breathing. She's okay. Another option that you could do is a chemical peel. I have a brief experience with chemical peels. I've used the AHA Ordinary one, the one that kind of looks like blood. I've used that one. That one, the first time that I used it, hurt. But then after that, like, it was literally fine. And that one is more of like for more frequent use type of chemical peel. If you are going to get a chemical peel for sunspots specifically, please go through a dermatologist. I don't know how to perform a chemical peel at home other than like the ordinary one that I have. But anything other than that, please seek a professional. And then more options, but these should all be done by professionals, is a laser treatment for your sunspots. If you find that your sunspots are really stubborn, really bad, just not going away, and you just keep accumulating more, then I would recommend getting them lasered off. The next is, I guess, kind of the opposite of getting them lasered off, which is cryotherapy. So instead of lasering them off, you freeze them off. I don't have any experience with lasering or cryotherapy, but I imagine it's just like how they would get rid of like a wart or something. They would just like freeze it and then eventually just like falls off. But I'm not a scientist, so I really have no idea. If you try any of these methods to get rid of your sunspots, by all means, send me a before and an after picture. Like, I'm really curious to see what products work and what products don't. I find that sunspots aren't really a problem that I have, only because I do tend to stay inside most of my day. So, by all means, send us before and after pictures. We would love to see it.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Beauty Tips Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network, from health and wellness to entertainment and life and happiness to sex and relationships. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Beauty Tips Podcast.